Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Kelly, one of the hosts of the Horror Movie Night podcast, and I'm super excited to be moderating the Children in Horror panel. So let's bring out the panelists for this. We have Kyra Schon, Oliver Robbins, and Samm Todd. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Because obviously I got into, I think anybody who gets into film, there's part of you that as a kid you're watching the screen and you're going, that could be me one day. And you guys actually got to be that. So.
Somebody gave us a job. It's so weird.
Look, we're going to choose you. So also while we're doing this panel, there is a mic up in the top center for questions from the audience. If you have any questions, just start to file in and I'll throw to you if I see someone up there. But I wanted to go through all the different resumes because Samm, you were 14, I believe, when you did Trick or Treat, and the two of you were 11 when you did your movies, correct? 9? Oh, wow, even younger. What was it like? I assume like with Samm, you like by 14 you kind of get it.
Yeah.
But like at 9, you were.
Oh, I totally got
it. Okay. So there was no like mystery, like, oh, I'm murdering my mom in this scene right here.
No. Well, there was a little, but it didn't seem like I was murdering anybody because she wasn't even in the room when I was stabbing into a pillow. So there was not nearly enough drama that freaked me out.
Fair, because we always hear the story of, oh my god, I just blanked on her name. Felicia Rose, where she said like she didn't even know the ending of Sleepaway Camp until she saw it in theaters and was like, oh my god, I was what? Like, so like, was there anything with any of you that was kind of hidden from you? It feels like you guys, all three of you, were pretty much there for the horror moments of the movies.
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't think that there was any real. I grew up though in a family with like a mother who's also an actor and who's really like open. Any question you have very young, she will let you know in a very honest and clear way. There's no sort of like birds and the bees conversation, so to speak. But there was no sort of like parental supervision about hiding any element of the script or anything that was going on. But yeah.
I didn't have that either. I had a very open family, but I didn't have the birds and the bees conversation either. It was like both my parents were from New York and point blank, and they actually asked me about that. They said, Oliver, is there anything you don't understand? I said, yeah, I get it all. Okay, that's the end of our conversation about that. But no, in terms of Poltergeist, they gave me the script, and I was actually having trouble learning to read it. I had a reading problem, and this is how I actually learned to read. They said, Oliver, if you want to be in this movie, you have to learn to read. And I learned to read within 2 weeks. Because I said, I had to read the script, I had to learn my lines. So I knew every scene in that movie, by heart, and everything was laid out for me.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing.
And for you?
Yeah.
I mean, I believe your dad was one of the producers of the movie, correct?
And he played my father in
the movie as well. I'm sure that had to make it a little bit easier.
No, actually. No, that did not make it easier because, I didn't grow up with my dad. I grew up with my mom. And so my relation, oh my God, what am I doing? But anyway, now I kind of want to get into therapy. But I was afraid of letting him down, you know what I mean? So I was very nervous about making a mistake. I didn't know how I would have made a mistake. I had 2 words to say, 2. You guys had like all this dialogue, but I said, I hurt, and that was it. And so, but my dad said, well, if you make a mistake, time is money, and you can't, oh, no pressure. But watching him and Marilyn flub their lines time after time made me feel so much better. So then it was like, this is okay.
Is it true that you also played the corpse at the top of the stairs?
Did, yes.
What a weird...
Thank God she had no lines. It was good.
I read that when I was like getting ready for this. I'm like, wait, what? Because that was a 9-year-old playing the corpse.
It was.
That's the power of low-budget filmmaking.
I was always very tall. So,
oh, okay, there you go.
I was, and I'm 5'9", but I think I was probably 5'9" then too.
That's amazing.
I never had that problem.
So I have to ask, especially this is more directed to Oliver, but I'm curious with all three of you. Oliver, when I was thinking about Poltergeist, you take such a beating compared to the other kids in that movie. Like, Carol Ann's missing for half the film. The older sister's hanging out with her boyfriend half the film, and you're getting, like, thrown around a room, pulled under the bed by clowns and trapped in closets, and then your braces come alive. Like, what was that like?
I don't know. Poltergeist really hated me. I was going to get that kid. No, I was like the beating child, the ghosts, I guess. I don't know. No, I actually had a lot of fun doing it, believe it or not.
Okay.
Because they made it feel like a game for me when I was a little boy. Like Frank Marshall and Spielberg and Hooper said, yeah, you're going to go back to the set. We have this really cool set view and all the toys and everything. And they basically, every day was like a new challenge for me. You know, they basically said, today you're going to act with this clown doll, or you're going to act backwards. And they said, we want you to act backwards. So like in that scene, people were like, oh my God, it was terrifying to actually watch the movie. But when you see the movie, when you were shooting, they said, okay, this is the way it's going to work. We're going to shoot it backwards. So we're going to play it forward. So first we want you with the pinnacle of fear, then we want you to go back down to being normal. So it was all these effects were for CGI. So they're all in-camera, practical effects.
Yeah.
So things like that, So it was actually sometimes tedious, a little challenging at times. But I was a kid, and I was like, I loved just taking direction and just doing it and pleasing my director,
Yeah. Did you ever ask why your family bought you such a terrifying clown in the reality of this movie?
I know. I just, I kind of accepted. This is also why. Is that for some reason, I think every kid has a clown doll in their room, or some do. At least I did.
Yeah.
That is terrifying. And for some reason, it's in your room. Like you would think logically, this terrifying clown. Why is it sitting in my room? But I actually had one. I had this little Charlie Chaplin doll, and it sat in this chair, and I left it there for some reason. So they actually asked me about that during the audition. I said, no, Oliver, what are you scared of? And the script was like super secret, so they wouldn't tell me anything about the story. And I told them, I said, I'm scared of trees, and I have this tree outside, and I'm scared of this clown doll, this little clown I have. And they're like, oh, that's like Robbie.
How about Sam and Kyra? Were there anything where you were kind of feeling like I'm getting put through some stuff for a kid on this movie set?
I think there was like one. Well, I have a lot of running and crawling in a certain period, and so they put like volleyball guards on my legs, like for knee pads and stuff like that, and elbow pads, so that I could crawl and run, and they would move, and like I would get scratched up, but it's the same sort of thing. I was like, I'm out of school for like 7 weeks, and I'm here on a movie, and it's pretty great, if I have to, using that natural fear that sort of came from being in like a foreign environment was really helpful to be in horror, because it was like, great, there's a lot of nervous energy going on, and so I can sort of use it in these moments. But the only other thing was, too, there's a scene where like the camera is panning up, and I've fallen into a pit of water, like from running away from these kids, and the water was so cold, so I just kept shaking, and Michael Dougherty would be like, stop moving! You're passed out! And I would just feel like I was trying so hard not to move. It was so cold. And then our script supervisor came over to me after, and she was like, just want to let you know, they should have warmed that up for you. I was like, well, where were you? Like,
that's good help after the fact, I'm sure.
I just got reamed for like an hour, but other than that, same sort of thing. Really fun. Yeah.
And how about having to have like the zombie makeup to play the corpse applied at the top of the steps, or just like?
Use my face at all.
Oh, you were just the body. Oh, gotcha. I was gonna say, I'm like, I feel like there was like a skull at the top of that step.
But my question was like, why did the ghouls only eat her face?
They should just put a whole skeleton.
Wow, she's got great cheeks. We leave her body. Like, what is that? So they left her. It never made sense to me, but but yeah, that was my duel.
I mean, that's good. You got 2 credits in your first movie. How many other people can say that?
I got dragged down the hall.
Sam, with Trick or Treat, I was thinking about this as I was like looking at the different films that we're talking about with this. Now, you've acted in a bunch of linear movies at this point, but like Trick or Treat is one of those weird films because it's an anthology film, but all of the pieces are constantly interweaving.
Yeah.
Now that you've acted in just regular linear storytelling, did you find doing Trick or Treat with all of those extra pieces where you're needed for like a walk by for someone else's story, do you think it was just the same as any other filming, or did it feel like it was more intensive or less intensive on like your time?
Yeah, I I mean, that's a great question and something I've never been asked before, actually. So it's, let's see what comes. I never know what's going to come out of my mouth. So, no, but I think that, like, I really loved it in Trick or Treat just because I was involved in a lot of scenes. So I was on set, overlapping with a lot of people most of the time. So I got to meet Brian Cox. Anna Paquin was my idol as a child. I just loved her, and so to be able to, like, even have fleeting moments where we intersected, because I was in those scenes where I'm walking past her car or I'm just moving by her on the street, we got to have some time together in hair and makeup and getting to communicate. And for me as a kid who, like, grew up watching her stuff and really, like, went into the arts, it just was such a profound moment where I was like, this is amazing. And my other cast members, because they were only there for certain shots related to our own story, didn't get to have that same experience. So I really found it really beneficial. And I guess, like, in relation to other projects, it's, you know, each one is different in its own sort of experience, but I just really felt like so lucky and grateful to have the opportunity to overlap with a lot more talent, pretty much, because they wouldn't bring me on, you know, if I wasn't needed for the scene. Why pay me to be there for the day? But that was, it was a nice experience. So, but I think it definitely took up more time. Yeah, but again, like, I was in high school, so I was like, take me out of school.
Yeah, because I imagine you're getting like a callback, I guess not callback's not the right word, but you're getting called to be like, hey, we need you to come back to walk past this car a couple times for this shot. Like,
yeah, there were a few, you know, my parents, like, you have to have parental guardianship, obviously, on set if you're a child, and so my parents were occasionally on set with me, and there would be, like, some issues where they wouldn't read, you know, the trip sheet right, or, like, where I needed to go, or it would change within, like, 24 hours, something would be adjusted, and so there were a few problems on their end, being the parental guardian, to have to show up at these varying places and stuff, but for me, I was like, let's do it, you know?
Yeah.
Get in the car.
And Oliver,
drive the talent.
Oliver brought up his audition story a little bit. I'm curious, what was the audition process like on Trick or Treat, and was there even an audition process on Night of the Living Dead, which I know was, like, kind of like the granddaddy of independent horror, where it's just a bunch of friends trying to make a movie?
Well, yeah, I honestly don't remember if there was an audition process. It's been a few years. But they had originally written the part for a boy, and the kid was to be Timmy. And then, you know, there was a boy shortage that year.
Okay. So they're just all out in Pittsburgh.
Well, there she is. Exactly. So I ended up, you know, getting the part because my dad was the producer and Harry Cooper and, you know, all that stuff. So they drafted me, and you know, my mother woke me up one morning and said, "Honey, you're gonna flip." And I'm like, "What? New school? You know what?" At this time I was 9 years old, and she said, "No, you're gonna be in a movie." I'm like, "What's this?" What? And I was already like a horror junkie by that time. I grew up watching horror movies, and I loved them. So, you know, when I heard I was gonna play, like, a little monster, I was like, oh, that's awesome.
And, like, who would have known? You know, like, who would have known? It's like, hey, my dad's friends are basically making a movie, and it's going to be considered one of the greatest films that's ever been made. Like, what a stumble into, like, craziness.
Like, wow. I was incredibly lucky. You know, really, really lucky, and very grateful.
And Sam, what was the process like for Trick or Treat? Obviously, that's a slightly bigger budget. You got, you know, Bryan Singer.
I had, my parents used manipulation a lot of the time to, like, get me to behave in a certain way. I was a little defiant as a teenager, but they told me that if I got good grades in school and showed up consistently, that I could get an agent and try to start auditioning. So I've never worked harder in my entire life. It's the hardest I've ever worked. And so I got an agent, and she just, like, so advocated for me and got me in the room for that audition that I was like, I wasn't a member of any union. I had never auditioned for anything professionally before, which was amazing. And then I just, like, I just was so excited by the prospect that I just, like, prepped pretty hard, and like, I had a friend of mine who had a brother who had they had written into the script that Rhonda was slightly autistic, and I didn't really know what that meant or what it would look like. And so, like, I had a friend of mine who told me her experiences with her own brother, and like sort of gave me the ability to not do something that was offensive and
I was going to
rude,
say,
and,
you
yeah,
do it,
so
your role is something that could very easily, like, all these years later, you look back and be like, ooh, that's problematic.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, you actually were very believable and sincere in that role. Like, there's nothing that someone could look at that and be like, well, that's just someone who's never been around a person that has autism. So kudos on that.
Well, it was just really helpful. Others helped me a lot, And then I had the audition and was naturally very scared. I was very terrified to audition in that room, so I started crying naturally. But they didn't need to know. And then it worked because this crying. So thank God for my own crippling fear at times helping me through it. So yeah, it was my process.
So I know for me, I always wanted to make film, and one of the big things was seeing like the making of Star Wars playing on like Fox. They'd be like, oh, it's the making of Star Wars, because at that time the prequels were coming out. But what were the things that was there a moment or a something in your life where you saw it and you're like, I want to act? Like, was there a performance or a specific actor or something that really lit that fire in you? That's for everybody.
Oh.
Sorry, that's for all three of you.
Well, I'll start. No.
It's funny. I was bullied all the time growing up. I was this little guy, and I was like always being thrown in the trash can. And this is before bullying was really a thing.
Yeah.
So I really had to make myself bigger. And part of that, I started acting. So I acted like the bully. I tried to be the bully, and ironically, I auditioned for a lot of bully roles. So that kind of allowed me to step out of myself and be bigger than I really am, because I had like 10 kids that always would chase me around school and throw me and all the stereotypical things you see in movies. I lived growing up in LA, So that allowed me I started acting because I had to not be scared. I had to act like a tough little kid, and I was terrified inside. So that kind of opened up the door. And then I saw the kids that were doing commercials and TV, and I said, you know what? I said, I can do this. And my parents put me in a commercial workshop class. And at the end of the class, the teacher, I had my parents laugh. This is going to be the end of it. He's going to go play Little League or anything, because I wanted to play baseball too. And the teacher said, no, he's really good. He should start going on auditions. And my mom was like, no, my parents are very protective. They did not want me to act like at all. And I had to really convince them. And then I met with an agent, and she sent me out on auditions. And then I did a couple commercials, and then there was an open call for Poltergeist. And it was like hundreds of people, I guess, there. And they've been looking for like months for the little boy. And they asked me, they were basically looking for someone who was the character of Robbie. Yeah. And I basically I had the DNA, I guess, of Robbie. I was scared of everything. I was terrified of like everything in my house. And like, that's him.
I think that people undervalue how much that helps. I'm not sure if you've heard the story of Jerry O'Connell on the auditioning for Stand By Me, but like, he did terrible. They said he showed up, he was awful, he walked out, and then he like came back because he left something in there, and then he just stopped and looked at Rob Reiner and said, excuse me, sir, but are you Meathead? And they're like, and in that moment, they're like, oh, he's got childhood innocence down pat. Like, let's just cast him and see what happens. How about Sam, for you? What was like you said your family was kind of already in that world. Was that the light or the spark?
Yeah, my mother is a theater actress, and so she was constantly like leaving to do regional theater throughout the country, like in my childhood. So I was exposed to it pretty young, but I really do think that like Anna Paquin in Fly Away Home, I loved that movie. Like I was obsessed with Fly Away Home because I lived in Venice Beach in California, and there were ducks everywhere, like ducks and geese everywhere. And so I just was like, oh, I'm gonna be like Anna Paquin and nurse a bird to health. No, I can barely keep track of a plant in my own home. So thankfully my parents didn't let me do that. But so that was really like, I don't know, sometimes this is going to sound so hooey, but like sometimes there are these like universal moments that are just so profound, where it's like I really idolize this child actress, and then to be able to work with her in a film years later, just a few years later, was really like, I just was like, this is surreal. Like, this life can be pretty awesome. That's my little, PBS special.
It was destiny. Yeah.
Well, and
That is, yeah.
I want to talk about now in the future. Well, we're in the present. Now in the present, a lot of people who are child actors, they go on to do other careers, be it just something not even remotely tied to the entertainment industry, or it's like adjacent to the entertainment industry. What are the three of you? Are the three of you doing something else as well? I know the answer for two of you.
Well, my dad was on Wall Street, and he felt I should do it. And I graduated at USC, and I was struggling to make it in the film industry because it's so hard. And I was a spoiled kid, and I was used to living, honestly, a certain lifestyle. And my parents cut me off right after college, and I was grateful because they paid for my school. But I worked as a stockbroker, believe it or not, for 3-4 years. And, financially it was great, but it was a creative, pool, a black hole for me, and I hated it. So then I went back to film and started making movies, and this is my PSA part, it's not all about the money, And it really, honestly, it really wasn't all about, for me it really wasn't, it was more, because life is short, I realized, and I really have to do something that I really enjoy. So I started, making independent films and, working with my friends. And I worked for Bryan Singer too. I went to SC. He was actually a couple years ahead of us. So my friend and I, Paul Tedisco, we wrote a script for him too. It never got made, but it was Bryan's idea, and it was totally genius. It should be made one day. But anyhow, side note. But that's my side career. I was a stockbroker for a couple of years.
But also, you're a writer-director now. I think that don't bury the lead.
No, yes, of course. No, and I recently, my friends were like, you should act again. And I said, no, I haven't, I'm a filmmaker, I don't really act. I said, no, you never lose it. So they said, so I wrote this piece called Celebrity Crush, and it's an Amazon Prime, and everyone should watch it here. That's my big push. And I had acted in almost 30 years, but we did it, and it was strange, because the producer said, you have this amount of money, Oliver, we have to shoot this in 10 days. We actually shot it in 10 days. And we pulled it off, and we had a really great crew, and it was so much fun to, actually step in front of the camera again, too. It was hard because I was actually directing it as well. And I understand the technology from having gone to film school, but, you had to, turn it on and off. And that was a real challenge, directing and acting it really at the same time.
Are you, can we say that you're back? Are you back to auditioning?
I guess you could say, I realize I've always loved acting, so I've acted in a couple of my friends' films recently too. They said, Oliver, would you do this little part for me? And I'm like, sure, because it's a great break from directing too. It's not, I wouldn't say it's easy because it's difficult putting your soul out there. Because, as an actor, a lot of filmmakers don't understand. I think every filmmaker should possibly really act, even if you're not great, even if it's not the greatest movie. But because you're really letting yourself be in a place where people can see it and you're really vulnerable. And as a director, you kind of have to create that environment where an actor can open themselves up. So it was hard doing that as a grown-up versus in a kid, where you don't have any preconceived notions about life and, God, what am I going to look like, and yada, 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 and all those kind of things. And that was really interesting, acting again as an adult.
Kyra, Sam?
Well, no, I had absolutely no more acting exposure after Night of the Living Dead, and I, went on with my life, and I started teaching middle school ceramics, and that's what I did, as a career until I retired.
That's fantastic.
Now I do jewelry, sculpted gloss wax cast jewelry.
That's so cool. I think that's cool. I think that's cool that you just, it wasn't for you, and you're doing your thing.
It was not for me. It was not something that I ever aspired to. But that's not to say that I didn't enjoy every minute of it.
Yeah.
It was a blast, but it was just, not my thing. And I always really loved visual arts, and so I found my way there.
I feel like there's always that, even if it's a little bit of a creative part of your mind that wants you to do it, it finds a new creative outlet. You don't just go from that to be like, all right, well, I'm just gonna be a scientist.
Although I could have, because I totally fell into it.
Yeah.
Sam actually went out and you as well. it was just something that like fell on me like a house. Like, you're going to be in this movie, okay?
I love that you just got woken up to that.
Yeah, I mean, I did. It was like, you're going to be in this movie. I'm like, what? And you know, and then there it happened, and it was fun, you know.
And Sam, I know you're doing stand-up a little bit now?
I have done a bit of stand-up. It's not good. I don't. It's mainly me laughing at myself and feeling deep shame. Come check it out. Yeah, I ended up going to theater school, and then after I graduated theater school, I was doing I did like a little children's show for PBS, and then I was like, oh, maybe I'll start to explore comedy and stuff like that. So I was starting to do stand-up and auditioning and trying to find it. And it's sort of similar to what Oliver said. It becomes, there's how do I say this in a way? I just gave this PSA about how life is magical. And the universe supports us in our choices. And then I'm like, but it's horrible and bleak. No, I just I think I said recently in another panel that it became more about I need this to eat and to live. I need this job so bad. And it was less about I'm here to have fun and see how this goes, and thanks for your time. It was a lot more intense in the auditions that I was having. So I took a pause, and I'm still on a pause, and I'm sort of, finding other ways to express myself individually and professionally in a way that I can support myself and do. But it's always this thing that I'm always open to exploring again, and I don't think that life needs to be these singular paths. We can ebb and flow.
For sure.
That's my opinion.
No, I think that there's a reality to that. Life's really short to do something you hate.
But my comedy is terrible. So, it's not good. But I encourage everybody in this room, I think you should do it. Do an open mic. Feel deep fear.
And speaking of an open mic, there's an open mic up there if you
Yeah.
have any questions
Woo!
for the people on
Test
the
it
panel.
out. I'll laugh. Okay, I laugh at everything. I'll laugh at whatever you present.
And we'll answer all questions.
Yes.
Any
That
questions?
too.
Any question you want.
But no, I want to thank you all for jumping on this panel. I know it's kind of we lost a little bit of time in the beginning, but I think this was something I really fought for. When Craig was like, "What do you want to talk about?" I was like, "I want to know what it's like being a child on a horror movie set," because I feel like that is a lot different than you're playing the daughter on a rom-com. You know what I mean? You're just you show up, you say some cute things, and then you walk off set. You're getting thrown really into the acting, action and all types of different emotions. So I guess thank you for agreeing to do this very weird panel that I was pitching very hard.
Not weird at all.
Yeah.
Are
Right.
there really no questions?
Yeah, no one's got anything? Come
Come
on.
on, Gary.
If I cry?
COVID's gonna end.
What?
When's COVID gonna end?
Oh, well, I know the answer to that. I'll take this one now.
Yeah. 2 weeks from now, it'll
Yeah.
be over.
By Easter.
Yeah. Well, come say hi to all of us.
Yeah,
at our
please
tables,
go and step
okay?
stop off at all
I don't know
their
about
tables.
these two, but I have candy. Do you guys have candy?
I have
That's my
lots.
lure.
I have
Come
candy.
over, I'll give you candy. It sounds so creepy when I say it.
I want to taste my candy.
We all
Yeah.
have candy.
Come over to my
Yeah.
table and give me
For a
some
little
candy.
while. If it's sitting in front of me, it's not going to be there long. So you
Yeah.
better hurry.
Yeah, I definitely
Yeah,
ate
exactly.
at least 2 Twix from the bucket they gave me. I was well, while it's here.
Oh, it's there, exactly. What is that?
We'll be snacking.
Anyways.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. There will be another session in about 15 minutes.